Okay, we will begin part 3 from where we left. We had seen that the narrator or the author had come to Mr. Gessler to get a shoe made, and while he came in, he was wearing a shoe which he had bought from some store and was not in good quality and was cheap. Mr. Gessler notices this and points out a place in the shoe where the shoe might be paining this person. So from here, the author says, he heard from Mr. Gessler something which was sad and candid. They get it all. So he says, they get it all. Get it all means, it here means the customers. He said, they get it by advertisement. So he says, they get it by. Now here it means the customers. He said, they get it by advertisement, not by work. So he says, the the firms which are selling cheaper shoes, they get the customers by simply doing advertisement and not by the quality of the work. They take it away from us. So they take the customers away from us who loathe our boots, who love our boots. It comes to this, presently, I have no work. So he's saying that these stores which are selling cheap shoes which have no quality, they are advertising their work and they actually are not working to the expectation, but they are taking away the clients who actually love the boots of Mr. Gessler. It comes to this, presently I have no work. So because of this, currently I have no work. So Mr. Gessler continues, every year it gets less, you will see. So he says, every year I am getting less and less of customers. And looking at his lined face means wrinkled face, I saw things I had never noticed before. So he said, now when I looked at his old wrinkled face, I saw things which I never noticed earlier. Bitter things and bitter struggle. So bitter things means he's having less and less clients, so it's a bitter or a bad time for him, and bitter struggle. So there was a time when Mr. Gessler used to get clients who would come on their own to him, but now it was bitter struggle. Mr. Gessler, the Gessler brothers were struggling to get clients. And what a lot of grey hairs. Hair it should be. And what a lot of grey hair there seemed suddenly in his red beard. So earlier the author, when he described Mr. Gessler, he said curly, red beard and hair. But now he could see the white hair amongst these red beard. So looking at the condition of Mr. Gessler, the author was little concerned. So he said, as best I could. So he tried to explain as best as he could. I explained the circumstances of the purchase of those ill-omened shoes. Why ill-omened? Because first, the shoes were not good. Second, he wore it into Mr. Gessler's shop. Third, Mr. Gessler noticed it and he did not like it. But his face and voice made so deep impression that during the next few minutes I ordered many pairs. So his face was like the reaction of the face of Mr. Gessler was such that he was so disappointed, so taken aback that the author or the narrator has purchased shoes which is actually killing Mr. Gessler's business, and the narrator really feels bad about it, and just to compensate that, he orders many pairs. So he orders many pairs from Mr. Gessler. Nemesis fell. Nemesis means actually a punishment. So nemesis fell. They lasted more terribly than ever. So the shoes which he bought from Mr. Gessler this time, if remember, he says, I bought many shoes. So they lasted as if forever. And I was not able conscientiously to go to him for nearly 2 years. So he says that he had ordered many shoes from Mr. Gessler's, and as they were of very good quality, they lasted for long. And conscientiously means showing great care and affection. So even if he had great care and affection for Mr. Gessler, he could not go to him for the next 2 years. When at last I went, I was surprised to find that outside one of the 2 little windows of his shop, another name was painted. So he had 2 shops made into one, if you remember. So now in one of the shops there was some other name board which was put. So what do we conclude? That probably he was not having both the shops now with him, but only one shop. So he says his shop, another name was painted, also that of a bootmaker. So that was also, the board was also for a bootmaker, making of course for the royal family. So you remember, initially it was said that the Gessler brothers were the only ones who had not written that they made shoes for the royal family, and every other shoe shop would write. So now this shop also had written on their signboard that they make shoes for the royal family. The old familiar boots. The old familiar boots means the boots which were earlier kept in Mr. Gessler's windows, no longer is dignified isolation. So the shoes which were earlier properly placed, separately arranged, were no longer in that way. Rather, they were huddled. Huddled means crowded in a single window. Obviously, when earlier there were 2 shops made into one, there were 2 windows. So now the shoes which were kept in 2 windows were accommodated in one window. That is the reason they were crowded. Inside the now contacted well of one little shop. So now there was only one shop once if you peep inside. One little shop was more scented and darker than ever, and that room was more scented and was even darker than it was earlier. And it was longer than usual. 2. So it was longer than usual. 2 means the wait time for Mr. Gessler to come down and to meet the customers was even longer. So the narrator had to wait even longer before a face peered down, before a face looked down from the stairs. And the tip-tap of the bast slippers began. At last, he stood before me, and gazing through those rusty iron spectacles, he said, Mr. Now the ... here refers to, or is trying to show, that Mr. Gessler has forgotten the narrator's name and he's trying to recollect what was his name. So he says, Mr. Isn't it? So he is showing that he is recognizing, but somehow he has forgotten the name of the narrator. Ah, Mr. Gessler, I stammered. But your boots are really too good, you know. See, they are quite decent still. So here the narrator tries to appreciate and maybe cheer up Mr. Gessler a little bit by saying that your boots are really good and they lasted so long and still they are quite decent. And I stretched out to him my foot. He looked at it. So probably the narrator wanted a new pair of shoes or boots. So he was sitting on one of the chairs, and he stretched his foot, and Mr. Gessler looked at it. Yes, he said. So he said, yes, my boots are good. People do not want good boots. It seems. So he said, Mr. Gessler says, people do not want good boots, it seems. Why is he saying so? Because of the industrialization, the mass manufacturing by machines, the cheap products which are formed, and less time consuming. To get away from his reproachful eyes and voice. So, as Mr. Gessler was about to talk about the pains which is there and the author just trying to avoid it, I hastily remarked, but what have you done to your shop? So the narrator asks, what have you done to your shop? Means earlier there were two shops leading to one. Now you have only one shop. Why so? He answered quietly, it was too expensive. So Mr. Gessler answered, it was too expensive to maintain two shops. So probably he has now taken up only one shop. Do you want some boots? So if you look at this statement, do you want some boots? So there is a sense of urgency. Probably Mr. Gessler is running out of business and he needs business because that brings money. That's how people live. So he is showing urgency here and is coming directly to the point. He's saying, do you want some boots? I ordered 3 pairs, though I had only wanted 2, and quickly left. So the narrator wanted to order only 2, but looking into the condition of Mr. Gessler, first, now he has only one shop. Second, the amount of urgency he is showing, and also the depression which has come into him now that he accepts that people do not expect or do not want quality things. This made the narrator to order one more pair of shoes, perhaps to give Mr. Gessler a little bit more of business and money. I do not know quite what feeling of being part in his mind of a conspiracy against him. So the author says that it seems that I was also a part of the conspiracy that has been going against him, because now the author is guilty that he is also one of those who has purchased those low quality cheap shoes, and probably is also party to party or a part of the group which is trying to pull down artisans like Mr. Gessler. So much against him as against the idea of boot. So he seemed to be against him, but not against the idea of boot. That because that he can buy from anywhere, just like other people are doing nowadays. And so the narrator continues. One does not, I suppose, care to feel like that, for it was again many months before my next visit to the shop paid. So he says, what he's trying to say is, one doesn't bother if somebody has conspired against them, or not, and after many, many months again, the author visited the shop. I remember with the feeling, oh, well, I cannot leave the old boy. So here goes. Perhaps it'll be his elder brother. So what he wants to say is that he goes to the shop after many, many months. Again, the author visits the shop. He feels that I cannot leave that old boy, referring to the Gessler brothers, and he thinks, if not the younger brother, perhaps it will be the elder brother this time whom he will meet. But I will continue my visits to their shop or store. For his elder brother, I knew, had no character enough to reproach me even dumbly. Reproach means to go against. So the author knew the nature of both the brothers. The younger one could reproach, that is, go against him. Like if you remember, when he had bought that shop from another store, which was cheap and of bad quality, it was the younger brother who had pointed out that this shoe has not been made by us. He was more of straightforward, while the elder brother, so I'll continue, the younger one could reproach, means could go against, but the elder one was in his own world and could not go against anyone because he lived in his own world. Okay. And to my relief, in the shop there did appear to be his elder brother handling a piece of leather. So now when the author reached after some months to the store, he was in a relief to see his elder brother who was there in the shop handling a piece of leather. Well, Mr. Gessler, I said, how are you? He came close and peered at me. It means he probably was old, so he couldn't see from a distance. So he came close and looked at the narrator and peered at me and looked at him. Okay. I am pretty well means I am pretty well. He said slowly, but my elder brother is dead. So he says, I am pretty well, but my elder brother is dead, is no more. So he must have been very sad. Now try to understand the situation of the brothers. The elder brother is no more, and the younger brother looks old. Now this younger brother is looking elderly, like more aged as good as the older one, and he appears to be more feeble. And in how many months? In a few months, because last time when the author met the younger brother, that was some months ago, so not even a year, and this younger brother is looking now like the older brother, and the elder brother is already dead. So we'll continue. So the narrator is a little surprised. He thinks in his own mind, and I saw that it was indeed himself. So he says, I saw, yes, it was indeed the younger brother, but how aged and wan. Wan means ill. He looked, and never before had I heard him mention his brother. So he was little surprised that he was just a customer to him. Then how come he discusses about his brother, that his brother is dead? Much shocked, I murmured, "Oh, I'm sorry." So he's much shocked and he murmurs, "Oh, I am sorry." "Yes," he answered. "He was a good man. He made a good boot." Boot means he made good boots. "But he is dead." And he touched the top of his head, where the hair had suddenly gone, as thin as it had been on that of his poor brother. So he says, yes, he was a good man, and he touches his head, probably in honor of his brother. And at this time, the narrator notices that his hair has also grown thin, just like his elder brother. So basically, what it is trying to show is that both the brothers are not keeping well, are struggling to survive, are even, or even you may say, they are sort of like hungry or starving. So he says, "Yes," he answered, "he was a good man. He made a good boot, but he is dead." And he touched the top of his head, where the hair had suddenly gone, as thin as it had been on his poor brother, to indicate, I suppose, the cause of death. So, if you look at the last line, he says, "Thin as it had been on that of his poor brother, to indicate, I suppose, the cause of death." Now, probably the younger brother unknowingly is showing that the elder brother died of his age. That is the reason the hair had fallen, or perhaps he's pointing to some disease which the elder brother suffered from. He could not get over losing the older shop, the older shop, sorry. So the younger brother says he could not get over losing the other shop. So if you remember, initially they had two shops leading into one, means two shops made into one, but later they had to give away or sell off or lose one of the shops because it was getting difficult for them to survive in this world where, due to mechanization and machines being involved in manufacturing of boots or many things in that case, people who were good at it and could produce quality products were suffering, were not getting enough business. So he says he could not get over the losing of the other shop. So he was depressed because they lost the other shop. "Do you want any boots?" Now see, again he's coming to business directly. So this again exposes the condition in which these brothers were living in, and now that one of them is dead, the younger brother is living in, probably, or not probably, actually they don't have business. So they directly come to the point, if you want boots. So it is actually desperation for business, for earning. And he held up the leather in his hand. So he showed the leather in his hand. It is a beautiful piece. So it is a beautiful leather. Now, if you go back, and when Mr. Gessler found out that the narrator was wearing a cheap shoe which he had bought from some other place, he did not bother to show any leather to the narrator. Now here he is in a situation where he is actually pleading him to get some boots done, and is again showing that piece of leather which he says is really beautiful. We will stop here for today. Next turn we will continue. Thank you so much.